Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. In our first story, we meet an overworked, highly skilled employee doing the job of multiple people until a manager decides to enforce one of the dumbest, most outdated rules in the book. No phones allowed, even during downtime. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Why enforcing pointless rules on your best employee will backfire. I work as a direct support person. My company has some serious hate towards cell phones. They used to fire people on the spot if you're caught with cell phone. Because of COVID, my company's been suffering badly. They lost about 40% of the staff and roughly half oversights. So they're basically hiring pretty much anyone and throw overtime at anyone who asks for it. But they still are really struggling. It's to the point where they have to have someone pick clients up and bring them to other clients' place because they don't have enough staff to cover everyone. I work with large amount of clients and am pretty much capable of doing almost anything that supervisors can do. I'm also the one who've trained many other employees, so they often come to me before they go to supervisor. Last week I was working and I was bored out of my skull as usual. I was working with this client who didn't want to do much besides watching TV or playing on his tablet all day, so I was on my phone. One of the managers walked in and sneaked up to me and tapped me on the shoulder. I turned to look at the manager and casually say, "Hi." The manager then acted like I was surprised and tried to hide the fact I was using phone. I was casually holding it as the manager gave me a long lecture. I told the manager I worked 16 hours a day and took on many tasks that I don't have to just to give the supervisor some breathing space. I sure damn as hell am going to use my phone when there's nothing else to do. Manager then smirked and told me to put my phone away and told me I'd have to come down to the office sometime in the next few days. I remind the manager of how crappy some employees were, hours late every day, literally sleeping on job, etc., and didn't get fired. So it's really unfair of them to get all up in arms about me being on the phone. I was told if I can't stay off the phone, then this isn't the right job for me. I went and grabbed my stuff, then clocked out. The manager was jumping all over the place screaming about how I can't abandon my clients. I told the manager if I wasn't being nitpicking for tiny things that doesn't affect anyone, we'd not be in this jam. The manager begged me to stay for just a bit so someone can come take over. I say no. Got in the car and left with manager standing there watching me dumbstruck. A bit over an hour later, supervisor contacted me and apologized for what happened. I was informed that they really need me around, and from now on, if anyone come in, as long as I put the phone away, no one will say a word. Since I like my supervisor and am friend with many employees, I don't want to make things harder on them, and I also need money. I reluctantly agree to come back the next day. But if I ever hear anything about me being on the phone again, I'm gone. Just a few hours ago, the manager came in and saw me on the phone. I just put it in my pocket and got up. We had a short conversation about work issue. Not a single word about the phone was mentioned. I applaud you for being a direct support professional. That's hard and thankless work. The pay's usually not great for such a hard job. Of course, the behavior of the clients is what can make the job hard too, especially when they are lower functioning. And our second story. Old lady got angry because she lost her receipt. So I work for a pretty big retail store. We don't usually have any clothes over $1,000, but sometimes we'll have 3 to 4 items that are around that price. Our return policy is probably one of the easiest return policies you can possibly have. If you either have a price tag or a receipt, we'll accept your return 99% of the time. The only difference is whether the money will go back on your credit card or the store gift card. The 1% time we don't accept return is when the item is really expensive and we have to make sure that we don't give the customer $1,000 for no reason. As a result, the return process is incredibly strict. We have to make sure that they have the receipt, price tags, a special tag that we put on expensive item, the return is within 30 days, and that the item's appearance matches with our descriptions on the system. So this lady bought 2 $1,999.99 handbags for some time, and she came back wanting to return without receipt. And here's the role in initial cashier, M, me, M-A, manager, L, lady. L, Can I please return this? I know I don't have the receipt, but it's $2,000. I don't want to lose it. N. I'm sorry, ma'am. We can't accept this item without a receipt. L. Please? It's a lot of money and I don't want to lose it. MA notices the conversation and offers to look up the receipt for her on the system. MA. Ma'am, I can look up the receipt for you if you tell me when you bought it and from what register if possible. L. I don't remember when I bought it, but I know it's this month. And it's not from this store, but from another one, from another store of the same company, but I can't remember where. At this point, I knew this would be troublesome since the item was purchased not from our store specifically, but from another store, and we have no idea when she bought it. So the manager nodded and went to her office to start looking. Now, let me be clear, even if the customers remember the date, the searching process would still take about 15 to 30 minutes, and this means during those times, we'll be short one manager, and the other one will have to handle the store by himself, and that's why we don't typically look for receipts unless it's absolutely necessary. It took her 3 full hours to find it, and during that time, the lady got extremely anxious and started acting extremely rude to us. She angrily said things like, "What takes you guys so long to find a simple receipt? What can you guys do correctly? If you can't find a simple receipt, how will you hope to manage this store?" Of course, at that point, the one that was on the other end of the insult was me, since the initial cashier that rings her up already left because her shift ended. Conversation after the manager came back. L. Thank you so much. Thank you. MA. You're welcome, ma'am. Hope you remember to keep your receipt next time. M. Internally. F you. You were harassing us like for hours, and now you're acting like this? M to L. Now, ma'am, can I? She cut me off. L. What do you want? I have the receipt right here. Can you not see it? Why are you so slow? M. Ma'am, I need to see the receipt to type the code in. L. Here, take it. After punching in all the info and scan the item, M. Now can you? Lady interrupted me again. L. What more do you want? M. Calmly. Can you insert the card that you used to buy the item with, please? L. Okay, fine. Geez, here it is. Happy? At that point, I just looked at her with a dumbfounded expression. How can a person be like this? I don't understand. We finished everything, and she said that I should ask less questions and just do my job next time, despite the fact that I never asked her a single question, simply telling her to give me the receipt and insert her cards in so she can get money back. When she left, the cashiers beside me and the manager both said something along the lines of, "Well, that's rude," and the manager makes sure to remember her face so she won't do anything for her again. But yeah, without saying, I was in a super grumpy mood that day. Globally, there should be signs in every store that read, "Your receipt is worth the amount of your items you're purchasing. Please do not lose it, as store name is under no obligation to accept returns without a receipt." As far as that old bag, I would have spoken up and said, "Hey, we're doing you a favor here. Show some appreciation or we won't accept the return at all." And our last story. The HOA is selling the old man's house. My father's a combat veteran, stubborn as hell, and after my mother passed away, he became even more withdrawn. She had cancer, and while she was still mobile, they moved into a small house in an HOA to save money and have less space to clean. I didn't immediately notice that Dad was starting to have memory issues, but the HOA had already managed to drag him into some shady dealings. First, they coaxed him into giving up access to the pool. Dad had once built a small pool in the backyard so Mom could do water exercises. After her death, he rarely went there, but still diligently paid for cleaning and maintenance from his pension, as if afraid to let go of that small piece of her memory. The HOA turned it into a club perk, selling memberships to neighbors. I had no idea, since I usually visited on Fridays and never saw anyone else there. Apparently, the HOA scheduled access to avoid me on purpose. Things became more obvious when mail started disappearing from Dad's mailbox. Turns out the HOA was issuing fines for made-up violations, an unkept lawn, noise complaints, who knows what else. They piled up, and Dad, confused and forgetful, couldn't respond properly. I was also overwhelmed. My wife had a major surgery, so I was running between the hospital and my father's house, not giving enough attention to his paperwork. The HOA patiently accumulated debt and late fees until the amount reached tens of thousands of dollars. Then they used non-judicial foreclosure rights to put the house up for sale. I found out by chance, drove up one day and saw a for sale sign on the lawn. Dad was standing on the porch, bewildered, having no idea what was happening. Thankfully, my wife is a lawyer and her father owns a law firm. She had sworn never to work for his firm, and their relationship's complicated, much like mine, but she decided to ask him for help, and surprisingly, he agreed right away. His firm dug deep. It turned out the HOA wasn't just audacious, they were also incredibly sloppy and illegal in their actions. As John, my father-in-law, said, if they were even a little legally competent, this would have been way harder to fight. Mail was vanishing, documents may have been forged, fines were conjured from thin air. One sympathetic neighbor even showed us video footage of the HOA president sneaking a peek into our mailbox while Dad was watching TV. That was solid proof that my father wasn't aware of most of the debts. He was simply prevented from receiving the mail. The district court immediately halted the sale, and a full hearing revealed that the fines were fabricated and the foreclosure was entirely unlawful. The judge canceled the claims, forced the HOA to cover legal fees, and ordered them to compensate Dad for emotional distress. But the bigger hammer came from the authorities. Some HOA board members became subjects of formal investigations. The president, former president now, is behind bars facing fraud charges related to property schemes. Turns out he'd already served time for a similar scam in another state 20 years ago. The new HOA leadership had to publicly apologize to my father and revise their policies to ensure nothing like this ever happens again. Dad got lucky, not just because of my wife's legal skills, but also thanks to her father's powerful firm. We arranged for constant care so he wouldn't be left alone to deal with scheming bureaucrats. He still lives in that house, and it remains a cherished memory of my mother. The pool's still there, but nobody's selling memberships anymore. Dad swims there sometimes, just for his health. This story taught me two things. First, never leave your elderly parents unattended, even if they insist they're fine on their own. And second, fraud can lurk in the most unexpected places, even where you expect care and peace for veterans and retirees. Now the HOA knows full well if they ever try something like this again, they'll face more than just court. They'll face the wrath of a lawyer with very unresolved daddy issues. Moral of the story, don't mess with old veterans or their daughters-in-law, especially when they carry briefcases like they carry grudges. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.